All right, so you just got back from the Medved tournament in Belarus. Can you just sort of open up with thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it was good. We came away with a couple champs, some finalists, and some bronze medal matches. I think our hit rate for medals was somewhere around 40-50%, which you know is good, not great, but certainly better than okay.
Yeah. Can you speak to, I know Tervel and Jordan were the ones that won gold. How did they look, particularly this weekend?
Well, I think they look good. I think they're making progress. I mean, that's the key. I think the progress for Jordan's just getting back on the mat, competing, putting it on the line. Preparation leading up to that. I think for Tervel it was, similarly he had been competing a lot, so his was just to make some technical, tactical improvements, make some progress in his wrestling. Competition wasn't real strong, so I think it was pretty easy all in all for Tervel.
Okay. Um, I know that when Michalik had a pretty big win over Jake Varner, and then he wound up losing to Zabriskie. How does that sort of dynamic work out there? And maybe talk a little bit about those guys, how they're developing, and the difficulty that that weight is going to have for us, just in our country.
Sure. Well, in 2009, we had 7 first timers go to the World Championships. Now in 2013, you have 3 guys that are competing at a very high level, winning tournaments, medaling in tournaments, winning the Olympics. And that's taken us 4 years to build some of that depth. So that's good. We've lacked that for a while, cycle to cycle. And so now we're starting to see some guys trail over into that next cycle. That's good. I think, like anything, Jake's getting back to competition. He's a little rusty. I think Wynn has done a super job of making progress. He's super hungry, and he really wants to be on that world team this year. And David, David has been a guy that's been flying under our radar for a while, but that's the best I've seen David look in a very long time. And if he can continue to make those jumps, I think he can. He'll be in the mix as well. So I think we're starting to see some depth in our program.
Can you talk a little bit about the international camaraderie? It's obviously been a huge deal this past couple weeks. How was it particularly, at the Medved, and what were your thoughts on that?
Well, let me start with Cuba first. I started my trip off there, and that's when we found out wrestling was going to be challenged. And so the first time I felt it was in Cuba, where relationships, as we know, politically aren't strong, but in wrestling they couldn't be any stronger. Cuba and U.S. working together. Then, of course, that same thing trailed over into Azerbaijan. We went there to train, and then into the World Cup in Iran. And then finally up in Belarus, where now we had 2-3 weeks for that decision or that recommendation to sink in, that we found that we're in a place now where wrestling is probably stronger than ever because the unity of the challenges we face. So I think right now you couldn't find a stronger wrestling unity, but ultimately it's going to take leadership to make sure that you have 180 countries speaking different languages working together to solve the problem.